That works. Let me get going. And there we go. We are live. There we go. We always have a backup plan with Miss Liz. So welcome, 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 everybody. Thank you for holding the line. And we are going to continue where we left off on StreamYard, but we're going to get back into, we have the incredible, Right Honorable Yvonne E. Gamble joining me today. And she's going to be talking about women leading change now, all of the good stuff, her books, her TEA, and we're going to share some really good empowerment for women out there. So Yvonne, we're going to jump right into it because we were talking on StreamYard. And for anyone that didn't catch the beginning of StreamYard, I'll put the video and all of that in after. So you'll see all of that good stuff later. So Yvonne, let's get back into where we left off. You were talking about how old you were when you wrote your first book and why you started writing and all that. And then we're going to get into the space. That's right. We're going to do NASA because that's what we do here on Teatime. So
Yes.
Yvonne, I'm going to let you take over and share away.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And thank you, audience, for hanging in there with us. Yes, I was 9 and I wanted to be a playwright. And that's what I did. I wrote the first writing that I did, penning, was a play. And so, of course, you know, when you write it, you become the writer, producer, director, and do all that and get to star in the play. So I did that, and I had, you know, all my friends, and, you know, we did the little play there. I was in 4th grade and loved it and have been writing ever since that time. And, you know, I'll share, you know, something real near and dear and personal. I actually got in trouble a little bit before that when I was about 7, was actually was attempting to write my first book. I took and I looked at all the books in the Bible. So I took and put some paper in, I stapled it into the Bible at the back, and I put Book of Yvonne. And I wrote my little story. And so, of course, when my father saw that, okay, it was confusing for him. You know, what do I say to the 7-year-old kid? Okay, she sees these books and people have written, so she gets the assumption she should write one too. So she wrote her book and she thought, well, that was the way to get it put out there like everyone else's. And that's what I did. So, but I was, you know, it was explained to me that, no, that was a finished work. That's how he explained it. This was a finished work, so I couldn't add to that work, but I could write my own. So that's what I began to do, to write my own stories and not put the story, my book, in the Bible. So there's no Book of Yvonne in the Bible.
So Yvonne, you're also a speaker, and you've got like an amazing bio here. So for anybody who would like to know more about Yvonne E. Gamble, check out Miss Liz's Facebook page. Her full bio is there, and it'll be in the audio description. So check that out. But Yvonne, you are also a speaker. So when did you start speaking?
I don't, well, I think the better question would be, was there ever a time that I didn't speak? And no. There was another thing. I mean, Miss Liz, she is just a prolific interviewer. She takes you all the way back to those days. It makes you remember when I got, that was on my report card, I think from kindergarten, and it did not come off until about sixth grade, where I really kind of learned how to control the talking. Yvonne talks too much. I'm talking when the teacher is talking, when the teacher's not talking to the other students. I'm talking and disrupting the other students in the classroom. So I really, what I had to learn how to do was not how to speak, but how to control when I spoke, my topics, my subject. So therefore, what basically would happen was when you have a child like that who's not afraid to speak and speak in front of everyone and to everyone, no matter where the teacher would set me, going from class to class, grade to grade, I would talk to those students. I'd make friends with them and talk to them. So everybody, was my friend. So what they did was I was always the one to give the speeches. I was always the one, they would call on, to do the PTA speeches, the little kids, go to the board meetings. My parents, were board members. So it was always there. I don't remember a time when I was not speaking and not trying to have my voice heard.
Well, that's a good thing. I think us women, we need to be like that, right? From a young age, we need to have that
Yes.
voice. We have to have that, you know, hear me roar, kind of thing.
Mhm.
Not come at you and attack, but actually say, you know what, I'm going to be that strong person. I'm going to be that voice. Now, you have an organization that you started called Women Leading Change. Now, what does that stand for, and how did that name come about?
The Women Leading Change Now, I co-founded that with Marthea Caston out in California. And actually, we were actually doing the work long before we actually put the organization together. We were, always organizing, working with women and working. It is a political organization. And so I did several trainings, and I worked with several other political organizations. And so I would go out and train women. I would go out and find women in the community who wanted to be in politics and wanted to run, and would kind of identify them, and then would work with them and help them to get their campaign together, what they had to do all the way up to their first 100 days in office. So from the very beginnings of a woman sitting at her kitchen table and saying, yes, I do want to fight for this particular effort or this particular something that is going on. And that, but I'd always been in politics. I was in politics very early on, in my hometown in Covert, Michigan. And then when I went to Chicago, that's when I really, got the real good understanding of politics and studying, up under some of the greats there, in just understanding the whole political process. So I was always with, doing something, in the political arena. And so to this day, that's what we do. And so our organization, what our primary focus is to actually identify women in the community, who could run for office, who are seeking to run for office, to help them to build a coalition, so that they can make a successful run. And so I obviously do a lot of collaboration. I've served as the Get Out the Vote. That's usually my space when I'm actually active, and I generally work on national political campaigns. And I do get involved down at the state level, the senatorial and the congressional, at the state level. But other than that, I work primarily on the national level.
So you mentioned something about the 100 days, 100 days to office. Could you explain a little bit for the viewers out there that might not know about that?
Yes, that first 100 days is very critical. when someone is coming into office. When that person is coming into office, they come in with a plan that they've already devised, long before they've even won the race. As a matter of fact, that's something that you actually should write before you are actually going to go out and run for office. What are you going to do that first 100 days in office? Is going to be very critical. Everyone, the eyes are going to be on you. People are going to be expecting change, expecting really what you're doing is you're rallying. In truth, you are rallying the troops. The troops is everyone. You're rallying the people to truly get behind, not just vote for me. Now it's time for them to get behind the policies that you want to implement, to get behind you in how you want to govern within that office that you're in. It is very critical, the alliances that you set up during that time, because after that 100 days, that's kind of like, that's for a politician, that is your start out, that is your honeymoon, that is your send off. So that's going to actually set the tone for the next 2, 3, 4, 6 years, depending on, how long that term is going to be. That first, if you look back at anyone, be they good, bad, or indifferent, in office, you can look back at that first 100 days and you can see the things that they did. That's also their measuring stick when they go into, say, the next term or wanting to run for the next term. They're going to look at, what did I do, or what could I do better in that first 100 days, because that's the time to meet with all the necessary, cabinet members, all the necessary gubernatorial members, the members of Congress, your constituency that's going to be around you. That's the time to solidify all of those communications, to solidify all those relationships in that first 100 days.
Well, then it makes sense, because that's what you would use for your campaign as well, right?
Exactly. You will have used, yep, exactly. If you do that and you do that well, then that becomes your campaign stomp. Because now when you get in, then those people who did rally behind you and voted for you, they can see, yes, this person did do. They don't expect you to no one's expects you to, change everything and the world's going to become better or what have you in 100 days, but they do expect that you're going to address those things.
Well, which makes sense. And I think it's really a way of being direct too, right? That you're
Yes.
coming into office with a plan. You're not just saying, hey, put me in office and this is what you're going to get, like, surprise. Right. So the people are prepared, and then within that 100 days they can say, well, look, you didn't keep your word to this, so maybe in next time it comes around, I'm not going to put my vote in for you because you haven't stick with your plan, right?
Exactly. That's it. That's exactly what it is, because it's a barometer for you and a barometer for the people. And when you are a public official, you are a person, a man or a woman, you are for the people. That is your reason for being there. Your reason is not for, your ego or, for your promotion of self, but it is for the humanity that you're serving.
And Yvonne, you're a big humanitarian. What got you into being a humanitarian?
One of it's very as much as we try to in business, in religion, in politics, we try to separate out the human factor. We even see it now, with AI, with the artificial intelligence coming in. I'm a proponent. I'm a technologist. I am a technologist. I'm a futurist. I go stand on the edge of tomorrow and I look beyond and see what can be. But one of the things that we must never forget is our humanity. And when that really has drawn me to bring humanitarian and doing it, for the good of all, has always been, but I've had to now push that up, very much into the forefront and trying to get that message out there globally, so that everyone in everything that we do, we're thinking about the human factor. because what's going to happen, I use AI, I use AI with meetings, I use, AI for everything that is out there. But what happens as an assistant, as a help, but what happens when that takes over, then what am I going to do? What are you going to do? What are we going to do as humans? Because we're not going to stop procreating ourselves, so we're not going to go away. So we have to really think very carefully, and you don't want to basically get weaker as you get wiser. You want to become stronger, because what happens is when you sit back and you let everything done for you and you don't do anything for yourself, then eventually you fade away.
Yeah. And you're making some really good points, Yvonne, because we really need to be prepared for the future. We really need to stay up to date. We need to, and I'm glad that you're bringing this to the table, because for the viewers and listeners out there, AI is not going anywhere. So we have to really adjust, and we really need to start using it and not be afraid of it, and question it. I know I question it a lot. It gives me an answer and I'm like, okay, why do you feel this way? But the AI has no emotion, and it will tell you that it is not a human. It is a robotic thing. So you said that you've been using it, Yvonne. So how do you feel about the AI?
Well, with AI, the one of the things that we have to really, understand, we are now beginning to bring AI into the forefront as a almost as a and it is moving very fast into the replacement arena. Well, it has always been. The robotic arms, if we go and we look at many of the car manufacturing companies, and if you look at the car manufacturing companies, say 100 years ago or 50, 60 years ago, they were filled with people. And now you look at the manufacturing and the lines are filled with machines.
Yeah.
That's AI. That's artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence is not, it's wonderful to see, how they have the ones that look like humans, that can walk, the robots and that sort of thing. But artificial intelligence is basically that intelligence that actually can do what a human would have done or what a human does. Those types of things. We came in with the IVR systems on the telephones, and where you have the voice, the computer voices answering the phone, taking messages for you, and making calls, doing anything automation. Automation did not come within the last 20, 30 years. Automation is something we have been developing probably over the past 200, 300 years. We have been developing a way, even 400 or 500 years ago, when we very first started rolling a wheel. And instead of us walking, we had this back in ancient times. We used, some type of a cart.
Yep.
That was automation. When we had our sewer systems put in, when we had water put in, we brought water down, we were automating instead of us walking down to the river or to the lake or to the sea and pulling out the water on the bucket and carrying it back. No, we found a way to build a irrigation that would bring the water to us. That's automation. And so as we begin to move further and further along the timeline of man, what we see now is, yes, we have artificial intelligence. And again, I will still say this, and I'll probably maintain, I love artificial intelligence as an assistant. And understand very carefully what I'm saying when I say as an assistant. If it assists us in doing what we need to do, assist us in making us better. But once it becomes that which does it for us, then we still have to answer that question. What are we then going to do? Because we don't want it to get to the point where we stop thinking. I'm not talking about just the physical work and that sort of thing, but when we get to the point where we're not even thinking anymore, and it's very good. I'm glad to hear you say that, Miss Liz, that you question it. When it comes back with the answer, you don't just say, oh, okay, because AI said it, that's the way it should be. You say, well, wait a minute. Maybe that's not what I want. That might be a right answer, but that's not what I'm looking for. And that's what we have to do. And that way you're still thinking, that human factor, that human brain is still working. It's calculating. But when we get to the point where whatever AI says, whatever it comes up with, that's going to be the absolute. We have to be very, very careful about that. And that's where that's why all the big data, if you remember, and people didn't really, they didn't really see it coming.
Yep.
But if you remember a few years back, within the last 10 years, big data was the big thing. That was the hot topic, big data, big data. Big data was simply the collection of data, the collection of information. So all this information that AI is giving back to you, this is information that we have given to it. And so now it's coming back and giving to us these different answers. But what happens is, who's making that decision, what's right and wrong about the information that AI is giving to us? And because what happens is, people will begin to believe the concept. See, it's one thing if we're just answering a simple color. What color is this? What state is this? What shape is this? That sort of things. But when it begins to answer it conceptually, when we began to say, well, should we allow, children to date at 16? Now it's got to think. That's a rational thought.
Mm-hmm.
You see, that's not just simply a choice. That's not simply a choose one, A, B, or C. That's a rational thought that you're going to have to put some thought into it. And when parents make that choice and that decision, they're going to make that based on how they were raised, based on how they want to raise their children, those types of things, those feelings, those emotions. All those other attributes will go in there, and everybody's going to answer that differently. And that's fine. Yep. But when you have an answer given to you from AI, where is that collective knowledge that determines what they say is right? They'll literally have everybody doing the same thing. That's what we have to be very aware of and very careful of. As we design this, I studied computer programming languages. I'm a computer software engineer. So I'm very much aware of how to actually to program the computer. But when in the programming of the computer, the question always becomes, can you program the computer to have human thought? It's one thing to make a human choice, to make a choice when given choices, but that is not a human thought. When we think about it, we think more than just, am I going to say blue or am I going to say teal? We think more about that. We look at, the resonance, how that's going to be. What am I explaining? Are they going to understand or get what I'm talking about? When I use one or the other, whereas AI is going to choose from an algorithm that says what's most often used.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you're bringing this up, Yvonne, because I think we have to let people know that you still got to work your brain. You still got to think. The AI, it's like you said, it hasn't been in just now. It's been here for a couple centuries. We're just seeing it in different ways. It's being built in different ways. So for the ones that are not living in the moment and not educating themselves, because I feel that we need to educate ourselves. When something new comes out, try it. Don't be afraid of it. If you don't like it, question it. And that's what I do with the AI is I question it. Why do you give me this answer? Why do you feel? And then as soon as I say feel, they're like, I cannot answer that. I'm like, okay, so we're not where the emotions are. But do you see that happening in the future, Yvonne, the AI having emotions and having human thoughts?
I don't see a point where you would actually have, you are asking the computer to think, to go beyond just simply thinking and making choices. It's either, see, a computer works on an algorithm of ones and zeros. It's either on or it's off. And so therefore, that's how it thinks. So it is or it isn't. It doesn't think in what it does not contemplate and go, that's what you're asking. You're asking for that next level, Miss Liz, and I applaud you for that. You're
So it's
asking
always going to
for
be a 1 or a 0, right? With the computer.
exactly. In that computer, it's going to be one, it is or it isn't. It's either on or it's off. That's as far as its intelligence has gone today. What you're asking for is how soon will that next generation, which is actually being worked on today, that next generation of thought, where now I'm going to think decisively. See, right now, that's that very, we're hedging on that bridge between the human. It's not just simply the emotional thought, but it's how you think. It's that decisive thought. Decisive thought says, I don't have a choice in front of me.
Okay.
Now I have to decide what's best or what's worst. I have to, now I'm making conscientious decisions. And so now you're bringing into the point of consciousness. And therefore, in order to program into a computer, it does not say consciousness of becoming human or machine, but a conscious thought is a thought that thinks with discernment, where I'm not simply going to make a choice, I'm going to make a discernment about why did you choose orange and not red? When they're very, very similar, but why? See, that's what you're asking for. When will that next level come? When that computer can actually discern the why. And we discern the why as humans with our feelings and our emotions. We put that in, and that becomes a part of our why. Why did you write this book?
Yeah.
Why did you do this? Why did you go into that profession?
There's a lot of whys, right?
There's a lot of whys there. And so we're now, so at that point in time, I will give you a number. Please do not, don't hold my feet to the fire on this, but I would say there are instances where we will need this in the very near future. So by the time of 2035, we need this. And the reason we will need that is because, especially in the space program, in our space exploration, we know that we will not have overcome where we can have, everyone going into space, or the number of people we would need, say, to build a habitat, to build a city or what have you. So no, we're not going to be there yet. We're going to need to have robots to go and to actually build those things for us. Well, in doing so, you are going to, they will have to be able to make decisions such as, if it's something as simple as, well, the ground is not as level as it should be, the ground is going up and down, well, what do I do? So in other words, when it falls outside of the scope of, everything is right here for me, what should I do? What's going to be the best way to go? That there is a decision that's going to have to be made. And so, yes, this is why I'd say to you that, yes, we are working towards that. But that's still, we're on real thin ice right here. That's
Well,
the best I can say. We're on real thin ice, because then it's almost like the questions that are being asked in some of our, exploration. I can share with the audience some of our exploration. We say, well, that's wonderful that we'll be able to have the robots to go. They won't be affected by the atmosphere or the non-atmosphere, what have you, the gravity. They won't be affected by that. But now, if they take 3-4 years to build that, it takes us 3-4 years to get there, right? And we get there. What are we going to encounter?
Yeah. And you work with NASA, Yvonne. So you have like a deep understanding of what is coming and what, to be prepared. So for the listeners and viewers out there, Yvonne has worked with NASA, and are you like a spokesperson for NASA? Like, how does that?
No. I'm not a spokesperson. I was member of several of the different committees.
Oh, the committees.
The different, like the Mars, analysis committee, where we will analyze, our trips to Mars and where the different rover and where they go and the different types of things that they bring back, what we need to do with it. So that's one. And then I serve on also the outer planets. And that's where we look at, what's on the outer planets. How do we get there? What are the best things to do? What's the best ways to go there? So we have several different committees and what have you. There's no one, and no, there is the NASA, they speak very well for themselves. So, and as members of those, it's a lot. That's a very a mammoth, just as the European Space Agency is very, those are mammoth organizations with many layers and many groups and many peoples, because what happens is we need all this thought power in order to do the things that we do. And as you're saying, we ask the questions again and again. We question what we're doing. We question, what can be done, because there's a lot of things that can be done that we do hold off on. I will say that to the people. I can share that with you, that we do hold off and we do not put out there, and we don't commercialize everything instantly, because we look at the ramifications, we look at the long term, what will this effect be? But that we make that decision as humans. Will AI make that decisions, or will they do what is best at that moment?
Well, and I think it's important for everyone to understand that all jobs and all careers out there and leaderships and that, if we just jump in and we say, okay, here, what actually leadership are we actually doing? What kind of preparation and planning? And it's like you said at the beginning of the show, the 100-day of planning to get into office. We need that 100 days of planning our lives and getting things in order and being prepared, so that when we do get hit with pandemics and illnesses and all of that other stuff, we're prepared for it. We're not, oh my God, where did this come from? You're getting a lot of warning. It's not last minute. It's pay attention and get educated and ask those questions. I think that's where we need to really go, is ask the questions. And if something is told to you and it doesn't feel right, ask another question. We need to stop being so afraid of asking questions. And I feel as a woman, especially a woman leading other women, we need to tell women that it's okay to ask questions, because for centuries we've been told, don't ask the questions, be quiet, be the housewife, do the housework. But I think we're come to a point in time now where women need to be saying, you know what, that doesn't feel right to me. Let me question that,
Exactly. Because, and you're absolutely right. And that's something that, we do, with our organization, across all the industries that I'm in, and that is ask questions. You have to question it, and decisions, even decisions that are made, nothing is written in stone. And, and that's not just simply a cliche to say, that's an absolute. We take and if you're not asking questions, and you have to ask the right questions, and you have to be able to, you don't have to back up. A lot of times women are made to think that, well, if I ask a question, then I have to have documentable evidence why I asked this question and what's valid. How is my question valid? No, you don't. The person that you're asking the question has to come up with documentable evidence as to why, when you ask the question, they have to then come back with a response, and they have to be able to document that response. The onus is on them. The onus is not on the person who's asking the question. The onus is on the person who is answering the question.
And I think
that's what women
I
have
think
to
we need to bring a
really.
lot of awareness to that, Yvonne, because a lot of people that ask questions are afraid of asking those questions, and they back up, and they have that understanding, oh, this is not the right time to ask this question, or I'll ask that later. But maybe that later doesn't come around. So you should ask those questions. We shouldn't be afraid of being different and raising our hands and saying, hey, that doesn't add up to me, and have those other people look at you and say, okay, wait, she's got a good point here. Why are we not asking this question? And we always
Exactly.
look for these leaders, especially with women. We're looking for that one woman that says, hey, can you ask it for me? Well, how about we ask it ourselves,
Yourselves.
let's
Exactly.
let's start empowering women. And that's why I really wanted to have you on, Yvonne, because you do the Women Leading Change Now. And I think that statement, just that title in itself, is a big change. Women Leading Change Now. So let's change the way we've been taught to think. Start thinking for ourselves. It's like you said in the beginning of the show, we need to still think. AI is
Yes.
here. That doesn't mean we stop thinking. That doesn't mean that we stop. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No, that's not what we're doing. We need to question those things, and we need to ask those questions. So I want to get into a little bit more on the Women Leading Change Now. So if anybody would like to get involved with that, is there how do you go about that?
Now, with our Women Leading Change Now, what we do is once a year, and actually this is the time of year where we always do the United Nations CSW, Commission on the Status of Women. And so then we'll usually convene about 20, 25 women speakers, and they'll speak into the topic, whatever the theme is, for that year for the CSW. So that's something that we do on a regular basis. And then we do a retreat in the fall of the year, sometime between September and November. We do a retreat, and it's a training retreat, and training and teaching. And so women are, to come to those types of things. And besides that, we will pull out 2 women and ask if we are on Facebook, and that's just Women Leading Change Now. It's on Facebook, and they can always come and learn more and leave information, and then they'll see if we have a call for women, in the different political arenas, or who are looking to run, what have you, they can definitely reach out to us and let us know that. And we may not be in your area, but that's okay, because we can definitely direct you globally, as to who you need to speak to. And sometimes it's very good to reach out across the pond and ask, well, how do you run your race? How do you run this race? How do you do this? I have gotten some of the most prolific information, calling over into, into the United Kingdom and asking people who are running there, how they, well, how did you do this? Or how does that work? Because sometimes getting a different perspective, looking at it from a different light, from a different way, will give you many times different options and things that you haven't even thought about, or things that you don't think about, because you don't think that it resonates with you. But what we have to think about is this, and what makes sense to do that. We live in a global world. So we have people coming into our countries from all over, all the countries. People are not, sitting still. They're going everywhere. They're getting a plane, and 10, 15, 20 hours later, they're someplace else. So when they get someplace else and then they decide this is where I'm going to live, well, they now become a part of your voting body. So now you're not just speaking to the people who lived in this country, the last 20, 30, 150 years. You may be speaking to someone who just moved to this country within the last 10 days. And you have to be able to speak to that person and their issues and their wants and their needs as well. So you're not going to learn that, talking to the people here that you've been talking to. You're going to have to reach out to some of those other places around the globe and see how they do things, and see what they do and how they address their people and what works. And that's why, so with that, Women Leading Change Now is also a global citizen, in the work that we do, because we are very much aware, we're here in a melting pot. So, here in the United States,
Yeah.
it is a melting pot. So we have to always be cognitively aware. And one of the things I did want to say, as far as women and speaking up, you have to understand, you were wired. When you were born a woman, you were wired with what is called intuition. That's your why. That's why it nags at your head constantly, and you can't get it out of your head. Whether or not you ask the question, or whether or not you ask somebody to ask the question, that question is always going to be gnawing and nagging at you. That's because of your intuition. And you, as each individual, you have to ask your own questions, because the intuition that you have, I don't have. I have the
Exactly.
intuition that Yvonne has. Miss Liz has the intuition that she has. You have your intuition that you have. It is in our individual DNA. And because of that, you have to ask you're not asking my question. It may help me what comes out of it, the result, but you have to ask the question because it's coming out of your DNA. And I may not even have that thought put into my DNA. So I need you.
Yep.
I need every one of you to ask your questions. And don't be afraid of the answer. And most certainly do not be afraid of the person you're asking the question of. They live and breathe just like you do.
Right.
So, so what's the worst that can happen? They don't answer the question. And guess what? Go ask somebody else. Keep asking the question until you get an answer. Don't take no for an answer. Don't take someone's pushing off or some left-handed turn down. Don't take that.
Yep.
Keep going. And let me tell you, the longer you have to ask a question, now that's a good thing, the more people you'll have on your side. The more people you'll get on your side, because the more people you let know, this is my question. I'm not getting my question. Nobody's answering my question. And trust me, ladies, we will rally for one another. We will rally for you to get that question answered. And this one way, one savior coming in, then that does not work. Okay. That may have worked in Camelot, but the knight in shining armor, he ain't coming.
Yep. And I love that you're saying this, Yvonne, because, we as women are born with that intuition. And it's like when you're in a gathering and you hear a lot of women, oh, I wish I would have asked that question. You are to ask that question. And that's what Yvonne is saying, is ask the question. Even if that question was asked and you think that there was, but you still are looking a little deeper, you still want a little more, and don't stick with like a no. It's like you said, there's no Prince Charming coming, we need to just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And I love the word rally, because we really rally together, and we're stronger as women when we rally together. Now you mentioned the women leading change now. Now, on your themes every year, is that based on the International Women's Day theme? Or is that based
That's
on
based on the United Nations. That's based on the United Nations. United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. The Commission on the Status of Women convenes women all over the world to come together, and they're under the 17 SDGs that they have. The 17 commissions that the United Nations have for the betterment of the world. And so under one of those, is going to be the guiding principle or the guiding theme for that particular year. And so we then are looking for, this is for women all over the world to be able to speak into that issue. And so what we do, along with other organizations, is we will host what we call parallel event. And so we do it on Zoom, because that is something that pretty much everybody is able to get on and able to have access to, and it works very, very well, because obviously the world cannot meet in New York. So they very finite, as how many people can actually go there and come there. So we do these are going on, not only us, but these are going on around the world. And that's very good. And then it's very good to contact us, through our Facebook page. And that way you can become a speaker. And there are also opportunities throughout the year. Like there's in September, in the fall, there is the UN convenes again on peace, where they have convenings, almost monthly throughout the year. There's some type of convening. So we look for people, and we try to poll out to people from all different places to come and speak. And and again, we do it all, virtually. And, with the advent of it just makes it so wonderful that you can be where New Zealand and you can speak directly into a United Nations topic. And that's very good because those are the top, those are for us, those are global topics. And then we also have a presence at Davos, where we will go there, and they have in Davos, when the World Economic Forum is going on there, we will, in the actual little city there, they have a platform, so it's kind of like a sub platform. And so again, because you have so many people wanting to speak, these other little platforms are put together, but it does allow you to speak your voice, and now your information is included, in the actual trailer of information, so that you can speak up and speak out. And therefore, what we're trying to say to you, ladies, and that is there's so many platforms. Your voice is your forever platform, and you must use it. That's why it was given to you, so that in the discernment and the thought, your purpose here is to create peace and to leave humanity better than it was when you came.
And as women, we're nurturers, so we have that gift of bringing peace, and it's within us. So I want to get to your tea, Yvonne, because the time is running by really quickly this morning. If I ask you what is your tea, what 3 words would you give me for your tea, starting with the TEA?
My 3 words would be infrastructure, policy, and space.
And space. So Yvonne, you mentioned the 17 SDGs. So how do women in the world get educated on the SDG? Because I think it's really important that we are aware of those SDGs and how we can bring change to the world. So how can people find out about that?
Go out to unitednations.org and then look up just put in on the search bar, the 17, it will come up, the 7 sustainability goals of the United Nations. That's what those are. And those 17 sustainability goals basically, and therefore right there, that gives you a lot of areas, so many different areas, and you would be surprised at just what is going on already in your areas right now, that you can actually become a part of, and that they are looking for people to to speak into those things.
So if any women out there that are watching the show and will watch the replay later, if they would like to get a hold of you, Yvonne, how could they reach you?
The best thing is through the Facebook, is to go on to the Women Leading Change Now, to go on to there, or to reach me through LinkedIn. That LinkedIn is probably the fastest way, because then I can see that right away. If they want to try to send me a direct message, I would say LinkedIn.
So do you have any future plans within the next 6 months for Women Leading Change Now?
Within the next 6 months, we're actually looking to plan the fall retreat. The fall, it'll probably be more closer to wintertime, but that's okay, because we're looking to do on a yacht. And so we want to have our training, we want to do it on the water. So we are, so that's something that I would say, if you are interested in that, send me an interested in speaking, being one of those speakers, send me a message through LinkedIn, send me a direct message through LinkedIn. And then that way I can get that right away. Because you'll get to me there before you'll see it planned and put. You don't want to wait until it gets put together, because when it goes out on Facebook, it'll be, pretty much well finished. But during our preliminary stage, if you want to be a part of that, please reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Well, thank you so much, Yvonne. Now I want to get into some personal questions that I've asked all my guests. I asked my guests what their favorite color is and 1 word to describe you. The 1 word to describe yourself you gave me is masterful. Why that word?
Because what I do is, I'm not a perfectionist, but I like to master whatever it is that I am doing. I like to master that, with training. I wasn't satisfied with simply being a trainer. I wanted to be a master trainer. So that was something where I had to really, the discipline, because of I have a very strong constitution of discipline, of self, mind, and body. So therefore, whatever I do, I master that, whatever subject. I want to go to the top of that subject and to master that. Because once you have done that, for certain, for sure that what you do what you do, and it becomes it becomes a part of you. And it's not something that you have to work at doing. It's not something you have to think about. You can simply, it's just who you are. That like the back of your hand. And that's why I always look to become a master of whatever it is that I'm doing.
And I think that's a powerful word as a woman as well.
Yes, and with women, and women are masters. They and don't even realize it. You have to realize, take ownership, and really, it's not just simply ownership, but you have to take responsibility for who you are and for what you are. Women are, when you think back on your mothers, your aunts, your sisters, when you think back on these women and the things that they were able to do, and those who were able to do it with very little, those who did it with a lot. When you think back on, it's like, how could they do, all those different things, and and simultaneously, and and keep everything together, and be, when you think about that, that's mastering.
Yeah.
That is mastering. And that's what it takes. That's, it's not the perfection. It is, they mastered their talents in whatever they were doing. It's going to be very rarely, even for men, you can ask a man or a woman, who do you remember most? And that's going to always be a woman.
Yep.
It doesn't matter if it was his mother, a teacher, or someone he knew, a wife, or what have you. Or not, it's going to be a woman. The one who say you remember most, not just people you remember or they did this, but who do you remember most? It's going to be a woman. That's why when you have people, football players, they what do they do? They win the game and what? Hi, mom.
Right.
And the father is like, I was out there with you throwing the ball. I took you to the game.
Yeah.
I taught you how to play this game. You got here because of me. Hi, mom. Every time, no matter what sport it is, they're going to say that.
Yeah.
The soccer players, they're going to say that. They're gonna get that through the camera, no matter what is happening, what's going on. You watch the next game. That's gonna squeeze out
It's
some
like,
kind of
thank
way.
you, mom. Thank you, grandma. Like,
Exactly. They're gonna find a way.
Yep.
Why is that? Why is that?
That's a good question.
Because that's their, for women, you are that holy grail. You are it. You are it. You hold that nurturing. You brought that life. You bring life. You create life. You do not destroy life. Women do not destroy life. Women do not destroy life. We create, and we don't destroy what we create, what is created. We are that one that actually, that is carrying that life, that is nurturing that life, and that is bringing that life forth. So therefore, we don't destroy.
Yeah. And I think it's really important for us to know that we are the masters,
Mm-hmm.
And it's not bow and obey. It's, just value who you truly are and be proud of
Right.
who you are, your originality, and be different, be yourself, ask those questions, because we all have that different intuition. We have that, each are different brand and flavor. And that's what I love doing on Tea Time, is I love bringing out the flavors of different guests and different individualities, because not one person is the same. We might have similar stories or similarities in what we've done in life, but there's not one person that is the same. And there's not one cup of tea that is the same, because each cup is made different. Each flavor, the temperature of the water, the temperature of the tea bag, is a tea bag old? How old is that tea bag? You know, like that. And this is what I use the tea as a way of expressing how strong we truly are as individuals. And to keep thinking the tea, keep serving the tea, keep asking those questions. And that's why I always ask all of the guests, what is their tea? Because I can't serve their tea, only they can. I'm the lady that holds the pot, and I just say, spill it. Let's make a mess and let's really educate and teach people out there. So I want to really thank you, Yvonne, for joining me today on Tea Time. But before we wrap up, I asked you what your favorite color was, and you gave me red. So why red?
Red. Red to me is a most powerful color, and it is the easiest for me to see myself in it. And and so to me, if red, it envelops me, it surrounds me. I feel warm, I feel comfortable, I feel strong in it. So for me, it is everything and all things. And that's what red is to me.
Well, thank you
And
so
my
much.
favorite tea is Earl Grey.
Oh, well, look at that. That is a good tea. Got lots of flavor in that tea.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. It was an honor to have you join me today on Tea Time. And again, we did have some glitches and technology issues, but we always find a solution. Always have a plan B, because you just never know. Plan A sometimes doesn't work. So you question it, right? And you go on to the
Right.
next one. So any
Exactly.
final words before we wrap up your tea time today?
I will say I will end this with the same way I end all of my speaking engagements, my keynotes, my conversations, my tea times, and that is tell the truth, not your truth, not the truth as it's been told to you, but tell the bottom of your stomach, the top of your head. You know the truth, women. It's time to tell the truth.
I love that. And we're going to wrap up today's tea time. And again, thank you again, Yvonne. Thank you to all the listeners out there. And if you have any questions and you would love to get a hold of Yvonne and you can't seem to find her because you ain't looking hard enough, you can always reach out to Miss Liz, and Miss Liz will direct those questions directly to Yvonne and we'll get those answered for you. And again, I want to thank everyone for listening and tuning in for Tea Time. And I will see everybody this afternoon for a second rescheduled Tea Time with Mark Everglades. And we'll be talking about cyberpunk. That's right. We do all different topics here on Tea Time. So until then, I will see everybody at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And again, thank you again, Yvonne, for joining me and bringing a strong tea to the table for all the women out there. So I will see everyone in a couple of hours for a second tea time. Until then, have a good day and serve your tea.